Now, in recent videos on this channel, I mentioned that for Monday, it was very likely for Tesla to have a hard sell-off, especially since we were having economic data come out, along with a string of Federal Reserve speakers. And then for Tuesday, it was most likely going to be a soft day with not a lot of action. And long behold, we pretty much moved flat for Tuesday on Tesla. However, in this video, I want to go ahead and highlight the data that we absolutely have to pay attention to going into tomorrow, because this could severely influence the price action for Tesla stock. Now, I know I said this a couple of times on the channel, but tomorrow is the day where we have the consumer price index coming out along with the core CPI, all coming out before the market opens at 8:30. But then afterwards, we have an additional string of federal speakers. And then, of course, at 2 p.m., we had the Fed Beige Book. Now, if you pay attention closely, you will notice that I only highlighted Minneapolis Fed President Khashoggi, and I didn't highlight Richmond Fed President Barkin or Atlanta Fed President Bostic. And the reasoning behind this is because if we actually pay attention to how the FOMC is composed, we currently see that, Richmond Fed President Barkin and Atlantic Fed President Bostic are both part of the non-voting districts currently. Now, they're going to have a say on monetary policy in 2024, but guess what? We're currently in 2023. And so I don't put too much weight on what these two, speakers are going to say, because I really want to pay attention to someone who actually has a voting right and what, the FOMC committee it could possibly do as far as, changing or making changes in monetary policy. So that's why I'm putting much more of an emphasis on Khashoggi. And so with the wave of data coming out with the CPI report, along with a string of Federal Reserve speakers, with one of them being a FOMC voting member, it's going to be chaos for the market tomorrow. And so I want to go ahead and talk about later on in this video, what are some things that we could expect for Tesla. However, before we move forward, I do want to emphasize that it is currently Prime Day today and also for tomorrow. And no, I am not mentioning this because I'm going to be talking about Amazon stock in this video. I'm simply mentioning this because, typically during Prime Day, there is a surge of buying for Amazon or on their website because of all the deals. But I do just want to highlight, if you are going to be ordering off Amazon, make sure to check out the links in the description below, because one of the links is going to be a link where I have a list of books I recommend to read that are really just relative to the overall market that you should definitely pick up and add to your Amazon cart if you are going to participate in Prime Day. But with that mentioned and out of the way, I want to tell you guys something that I found very interesting. So this morning I went ahead and I logged into Twitter, as I often do, and I found this chart that I want to share with you guys. And so this is a Bank of America Global Investment Strategy chart, just showing us CPI by month over month and year over year. And one of the things we want to pay attention to is that if, the month over month CPI stays, greater than 0.2%, well, that could pretty much mean that inflation could head higher by 2024, which would not be good news. So for tomorrow, it's very likely that we have a positive CPI report, as we've been seeing the supply chains kind of ease up a bit in the last few months, and this is going to help with prices on goods. And I expect that vehicle prices are going to contract for June, which is good. Of course, we want to pay attention to the service section of inflation, right? That's something we want to pay attention to. But if we have a good CPI report, well, this could kind of get us away from all the hawkish rhetoric that we've been hearing in the last couple of weeks, and kind of put us much more on ease, where the market is going to feel a lot more optimistic, and which could obviously push the market a lot more higher. However, I do expect that we are going to have another 25 basis points hike in the next monetary decision. Now, in a recent video, someone commented asking why I always use Twitter to go ahead and find news, and I want to show you guys this chart I found on Twitter from ARK Invest, and it's pretty interesting because it shows us that Twitter is pretty much the main site to get news if we're just counting, the aggregate time spent on, platforms, right? So we see that Twitter is greater than all the, media outlets combined. And so for me personally, it's just much easier to go ahead and log on Twitter and get information and trying to go on, Wall Street Journal, New York Times, etc. So that's just my answer to that. However, with that said, I want to go ahead and log into my laptop so we could could take a look at Tesla stock from a technical perspective, but also mention a couple of things that are pretty notable going on in the market. Alrighty, so we are officially in my laptop taking a look at Tesla from a 1 hour time frame. So I want to cover a couple of things, right? So, Monday, like I said in the beginning of the video, and I also said before it even happened, that is most likely going to have a red day. Now, I explained a lot of reasons why, but just to kind of recap just some of the reasons, right? We had some negative news from Federal Reserve speakers, right, that were actually voting members, along with some economic data. What economic data did we have this Monday? Well, we had the consumer credit. And what did we learn from the consumer credit? Well, we saw that interest rates for auto loans are still going up there, right? They're pretty high. But we also saw that, non-revolving credit actually decrease. And why is that? Well, because people are not likely to take on these auto loans or student loans right now when these rates are this high, right? And then I mentioned that Monday that tomorrow was probably going to be flat, and if we just kind of zoom in for Tuesday, we ended up seeing it's basically flat. We basically opened here and closed here, so very minimal movement over here. But tomorrow is the CPI day. Now the CPI report generally has much more movement and weight as far as how the market reacts to it. And I want to just kind of show you guys what happened the last time we had the CPI report, in particularly for Tesla, right? So it was on June 13th, if I'm not mistaken, and we saw that Tesla, reacted very positive to the news, right, after we had the report, and we saw Tesla pretty much rally the entire day. In fact, if we take a look at the S&P 500, the last time we had the CPI report, it was a very similar circumstance as well, where we saw pretty much a market rally overall. So, as I mentioned, I believe that it's very probable that tomorrow we're going to have good data for the CPI. Of course, I can't bet my entire life on that because at the end of the day, I don't have a crystal ball. And so this is why it's important to stay data dependent. But, one thing that we want to take note of is that if we do have a good CPI report, right, it's obviously going to push the markets upwards, but in particularly when we're looking at Tesla, look at this area over here where there's very little volume by price. When there's very little volume by price, that's where we see rapid movement. If the stock is going up and there's a little volume by price, well, we're going to see a spike up. And for the inverse, if there's little volume by price and the stock is going down, well, that's what we're going to see. For example, Monday, we see an area where there's little volume by price, Tesla pretty much fell down pretty fast, right? And then if we take a look over here where there's a lot of volume by price, well, that's where you see supports and resistances and a lot of consolidation. So around up here, we kind of just, moved up a little, but mostly sideways. Nothing crazy. We didn't have the big moves until we got over here. And so what I'm saying is that when you combine the economic data, if it's good, along with the technical perspective, right, we could possibly see Tesla go up, back up to this 270 level, right? So that's something that we want to, just take note of. Now, again, if we have a bad CPI report, well, then, that wouldn't be too well either. And we could possibly see Tesla go back down to this 263 level, where I believe there would be much more of a support over here. But again, we can't put too much weight on technical analysis either, because there's always something that could come up that could move the stock a little bit further, right? But with that said, I want to highlight something I thought was also interesting. I know I already talked about Twitter, but yeah, as someone who frequents Twitter, I want to show you guys that I think you would really enjoy. So someone highlighted, remember when GM announced it had to stop taking orders for the Hummer EV with 90,000 plus reservations last year? Look at this. So General Motors stops taking orders from its popular Hummer EV because supposedly they had a ton of reservations, right? So we go to the next photo over here. The company has received more than 90,000 reservations, etc., blah, 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 right? But when we actually take a look at what they sold 47 of the Hummer EVs for the second quarter of 2023, right? Now, what's funny is that if this exact scenario would have happened for Tesla, it would have blown up, like it would have been out there, right? But people don't have that sort of energy when it comes to GM, which always makes me question why for Tesla is there a lot of pessimistic views and hate. It's very odd, right? Because when I talk about Tesla, a lot of times, obviously in this video we talked about the technicals and the economic data, but one of the reasons I'm bullish on Tesla in the long term is because of the fundamentals. And so even if we come down, for tomorrow for Tesla, I'm bullish in the long term because of what Tesla is doing and how they're scaling their vehicles and how they're still able to be profitable, But my question is, I just never understand why, we don't see the same type of hate towards other legacy automakers trying to go into the EV space, but when Tesla messes up on something, it's a big event. Anyways, that was just, side tangent that I wanted to share with you guys. But like I said, that is pretty much the plan for tomorrow as far as like looking at the CPI report, and then of course we have the Fed speakers and the beige book. Now, as far as other trade ideas, if you guys want access, first of all, to my daily trade ideas, make sure to check out one of the links in the description below, because it's going to be a link to the Push and Profit private group, where if you just kind of scroll down over here, I'll show you guys what you get. You get access to the lesson library, but you also get access to our daily briefings, where every single day I talk about what stocks I'm looking to trade, and I cover, just market news, and I make updates on the market. But one trade idea that I will put out there is going to be Microsoft. So Microsoft is something that I'm looking as a bullish uptrend trade for tomorrow for a scalp. And one of the reasons I say this is because, one, when you look at the options flow, there's a lot of bullish activity in the options flow, but also we also see the same situation where there's this gap over here where there's very little volume by price. And so for Microsoft in particularly, if we actually stay below $333 per share, I'm actually looking to either get, just trade shares long, or buy, $340 or 340 strike price calls as a scalp trade going upwards. I think as long as we don't go above 333 before the market opens, then this could be a very valid trade. However, if we do open above that, then I don't want to enter in if it's already that high. It just wouldn't make sense. But that's just kind of a freebie trade that I normally would only tell the Push and Profit private group. But again, you should never trade or invest in anything just because someone said so. You should always, just invest or trade based on, your own due diligence, and only, execute a trade if you see value in it. But that's just something I'm looking at for tomorrow with Microsoft and then Tesla. But with that being said, guys, I wanted to keep this video very short, sweet, and concise. And I'll see you guys on the next video right over here. Take care, guys.